And we are back. What is up, everyone? I'm Nick, and this channel is Swiftful Thinking, where we cover all things Swift and SwiftUI related. And in this video, we're going to look at building a totally custom navigation view. You might ask why we're doing that, and that's because the default navigation view that comes with SwiftUI is not that customizable. And I've gotten so many requests of people asking, how can we change this in the nav bar? How can we customize our nav bar? And with the default one, you really can't. However, you could build a custom nav view. Now, one thing I want to point out before we get into it is that the default navigation view that comes with SwiftUI is highly performant. Now, it's not that customizable, but performance-wise, it's exactly what we want in our apps. So what we're going to do in our custom nav bar is actually create wrappers and wrap them around the default navigation view and default navigation link. So under the hood, we're still going to use Apple's API for the navigation view, but on the screen, it's going to appear like we're using our own custom navigation view. And all this is going to be possible by using view builders and preference keys. And if you don't know what either of those are, I highly recommend going back a couple videos in this series where I covered generics, view builders, and then preference keys, all in order so that we could hit the ground running in this video. So go check those out if you haven't watched them, and then come on back. And once you're ready, let's jump on Xcode and build a custom navigation view. All right, welcome back, everyone. So I'm back in our Xcode project, and right here I have what we built in the last video, and it was actually a custom tab bar. So you can see the custom tab bar here we built. If you have not watched that video, it's probably a great video to watch before this one. In that video, we basically tried to recreate Apple's tab view, which looks like this, as much as possible. So the tab view has a selection, it has a view builder closure, and inside that closure, we have all of our screens and our tab items. And in our custom tab view, we kind of did the same thing. We have our container view with a selection, we have a view builder closure, and then we have our screens and our tab bar items. And so in a similar format, in this video, we're going to try to recreate Apple's navigation view as much as possible. So to begin, let's right-click the navigator, create a new group, and let's call it Custom Nav Bar. I'm going to move the folder down below our custom tab bar here. And I'm going to try to do it in the same format as the last video. So first we created an app tab bar view in the last video, and in this one, let's right-click, create a new file. It will be a SwiftUI view, and let's call it app Nav Bar View. Click create. Let's click resume once you're inside, and let's start out this video very simply by creating a navigation view. Open the brackets. Inside, let's put some content for this screen. Let's put maybe a Z stack here. We can do color.red. Let's make it ignores safe area. On top of that, let's put a navigation link. Open the parentheses. Let's use the destination and label completion. Our navigation link is going to send us to another screen, and let's have that screen just say destination for now. And then that label of the navigation link, we can just have it say navigate. And let's actually make this maybe color.green just so we can see that blue navigate a little better. And we're in a navigation view, but we can't see the title yet. So in order to add the title into a navigation view, anywhere inside the child of it, we can add a .navigation title. We can put nav title here. You guys have seen this 100 times. And when we click this navigate button, this navigation link, we can segue and it will push a new screen from the right to the left side of our app. And on this new screen, we are still in a navigation view. We have a navigation bar at the top. We can add another title here. And of course, we have our next screen here. So on this destination view, I can also add a navigation title. Let's put title 2. And I can add a navigation bar back button hidden. And I can set that to true or false. So again, on the canvas here, we have our first nav title. We have a navigation link that we can click, go to another screen, and we can set up another navigation title on this screen, and we have our second view. We set navigation bar back button hidden as true, so that back button is now gone. But by default, we want to show that back button, so we can put this as false. And if we segue now, we can get that back button. And that back button, of course, will bring us back to the first view. So if you are confused at this point and you are unsure how the navigation view works, the navigation link works, I highly recommend going to check out my SwiftUI Bootcamp course where I covered how to use the basics of a navigation view, because in this video we are basically recreating all of this but with custom views. And we're doing that because this navigation bar looks great, but it's actually not that customizable. And if we wanted to customize and build our own navigation bar, we can't use Apple's API, we have to make our own. And I'm super excited to share this with you guys because I've checked out a bunch of other courses where people are showing how to build SwiftUI navigation views, and I've not seen anyone recreate a navigation view the way that we are going to do it. And I think what we're going to do is going to be super helpful to you guys, because the secret that we're going to have in our navigation view is that we're going to actually leverage Apple's API of the navigation view as much as possible. So the logic that Apple gives us in this navigation view for creating a navigation view and then segueing to the next one is really powerful. The performance and memory benefits that come by default with this navigation link are so powerful. And we honestly don't need to spend the time to recreate this segue when we can just leverage the existing segue that we have here. So what we're going to actually do is use Apple's navigation view, but we're going to hide it so we can't see the navigation bar from the navigation view. And instead we're just going to show our own navigation bar at the top, but behind the scenes we're going to still be using Apple's navigation view for the segue and all the performance benefits that we get from their API. And the first thing we're going to do is build out what our navigation bar on the top is going to look like. So let's right click the navigator, create a new file. It will be a SwiftUI view, and let's call it Custom Nav Bar View. Go ahead and click create. Click resume once you're inside. So let's keep it simple here. We're going to create an H stack. Open the brackets. On the left we're going to have a back button, so let's put a button here. Open the parentheses. Let's do action and label. Action will leave blank for a second. The label will be an image system name. And here let's do chevron dot left. Click resume just to see it. In the center of our navigation view, we're going to have a title as well as a subtitle. So we're going to create a V stack here. Let's do spacing of maybe 4. Let's put text here that says title, and another text that says subtitle. That says subtitle goes here. Let's make the title font of maybe title. Why not? Let's give it a font weight of semi-bold, and let's, on this entire H stack, let's give it a font of headline. So the subtitle and the image get that headline thickness. And our custom nav bar is going to actually have a background color. So the default does not have a background color, but just to kind of show you how we can customize this, let's add a background color. And I'm just going to do color.blue. I think blue is fine. All right, let's make it look like it's on the actual nav bar here. So in our preview, I'm going to put it into a V stack, put a spacer underneath it just to push it up to the top. And firstly, I want to make sure that this nav bar extends all the way to the edges. So in here, let's put a spacer, and let's add another spacer on the right side here. The button we can't see because it's blue, so let's actually change the .accent color of this whole section to white. So you can see the white button on the edge here. And I noticed that the title is not in the center right now because we only have the button on one side and not on the other side. So what I'm going to do is just take this button and just paste another button on the right side. But let's make the opacity 0 so we can't actually see the button on the right side. Okay, and then I noticed that the button is so close to the edge. So before we add all these background colors, let's add some padding to the entire stack. Makes it a little bit bigger. And then the background, we want our navigation background to go all the way to the edge of the device, all the way up here. We don't want this extra white space. So on the background layer, I'm going to add a .ignores safe area, and we're going to use the edges of top. All right, so now we got our custom nav background up here, and let's also make the text white here. So I'm going to put, in addition to accent color, let's do foreground color of white. All right, we have our custom nav bar. This is what it's going to look like in our app. And obviously, if you've ever used Apple's Nav Bar, you know that we cannot customize the background color. We cannot add a title and a subtitle here, and we can only customize that back button so much. So here we have fully customized Nav Bar. And let's do a little bit of housekeeping before we move on here. So I'm going to create a custom subview for these back buttons. So down here, let's create an extension for custom Nav Bar View, open brackets. Private var, let's call it back button of type some view. We'll paste in our button here. Let's put that back button on the screen. So up here, let's do a back button. Let's put this as also as a back button, opacity of 0 on the second one. And then let's put this as the title section. So I'm going to cut this, come down here. Private var, let's say title section of type some view, paste in that VStack. Let's put our title section back on the screen. We have a nice and neat, super readable body here. And then let's create some variables for the data in this section. So on our navbar, there's a chance that we want to hide the back button. So we're going to create an @state private var. We're going to call it show back button of type bool equals true. So by default, we will show the back button. And we're only going to put this back button on the screen if we want to show back button. So we're going to say if show back button, put the back button on the screen. And we want to do the same thing with that placeholder back button on the right side. So we'll say if show back button, and we'll put the back button with opacity on the screen here. All right, we also want to change out the title and the subtitle, right? We don't want just this text. So let's create an @state private var. Let's call this title of type string, and we'll set it equal to a blank string for now. And @state private var, we'll say subtitle of type string. And we'll make the subtitle optional in case we don't want a subtitle on this screen. And we'll set it equal to nil by default. Let's click resume. And let's just set up this title. So coming down here, the title should actually be our new variable called title. And then for the subtitle, we're going to say if let subtitle equals subtitle, open brackets. So if there is a subtitle and it's not nil, we'll put that subtitle on the screen. Of course, we want to put the word subtitle here. All right, and because we don't have a preference key set up yet, let's just give these actually some values by default, just so we can start seeing them on our preview here. So I'm gonna comment out what it should actually be, a blank string, and let's just put title up here. And then here I'm gonna put subtitle and comment out the nil, just so we can actually see it for 1 second. And we're gonna fix these later on in the video. All right, so that's it for our custom Nav Bar view for right now. We just have literally this blue square set up. The next thing is going to be actually creating a view builder so that when we segue to this screen here that we see, we can add a nav bar and we can put our content below it, right? Because right now we just have the top section. We want a container that will hold the top section as well as the actual content. So let's right click, create a new file. It will be a SwiftUI view, and let's call this custom Nav Bar Container View. Click create, and let's click resume here. Our container view is going to be very, very simple. We're just going to have a VStack, and we'll put spacing of 0 because we don't want any spacing between the nav bar and the actual content. So at the top, we're going to put in a nav bar, so custom Nav Bar View, open close parentheses, and we want to push it to the top. So we could just put a spacer here for a second, but really what we want to put underneath this is actually content, whatever screen this is. And that screen obviously is going to change depending on what screen we're on in our view. So we can't hard code a screen here. Instead, we need to pass in some generic view that we're going to call content. So I've done this in the last bunch of videos. You guys should be very familiar with generics and view builders for now, so I'm going to move fast. But in this custom Nav Bar Container view, let's pass in some generic content that conforms to view. All right, in our view, we're going to have content, so we'll say let content of type content. And we're going to initialize it with a custom init. And of course, our custom init is going to have an @ViewBuilder with a parameter called content that is of type, and it's a function that returns content. And in here, we're going to set self.content equal to content, and we're going to call that function to return us the content. Finally, instead of the spacer here, let's just put the content onto the screen. And we want to make this content as big as possible. So on the content, we'll add a .frame with a max width of infinity, and a max height of infinity. All right, so now when we create a custom Nav Bar Container view, we can open the parentheses and we get this content completion here. And when I click enter on that content, we then get our view builder to open up our closure here, and we can put in whatever we want that content to actually be on the screen. So I'm just going to create a Z stack quickly. Let's put a color.green on the screen. Let's make it ignore safe areas. And then on top of that, let's just add some text that says hello world. And let's give it a foreground color of white. Click resume on the preview here. And we should now see that we passed in our content, our new view, into the container view. So this container view, so this custom Nav Bar Container view has the bar at the top as well as the content for that screen. All right, so before we move forward, let's actually just put what we have into our app so far. So let's jump back to the app Nav Bar View where we have Apple's default navigation view. And I'm going to cut this. I'm going to come down here, create an extension for app Nav Bar View, private var, let's call this default nav view of type some view. And we'll just paste in that default code here. So we can put that default on the screen if we want to. So let's add what we have so far, and let's add a custom Nav Bar Container view. And let's put the screen, let's make this screen be a Z stack. And in the background, we'll have color.orange, maybe with ignores safe area. And then on top of this orange, let's add a navigation link. Open the parentheses, and we're going to use a destination and label. And we can just keep it saying destination and navigate for now. And I'm putting this navigation link on the screen because I actually want to use the segue from a navigation link behind the scenes. Because the navigation link is actually super powerful. It's very performant. So we want to use the segue that we can get from clicking this navigation link to get to our next screen. Now, if we look at it on the screen here, we can see that the word navigate is actually kind of dulled out. We can't see it, and we can't see it because navigation links are only available once you're inside a navigation view. So if I added a navigation view here and open the brackets and I put in this new container view, we can see that our navigate button is now showing. The problem with this is that when we add this navigation view, we're now getting the default navigation bar at the top here, right? So I can add a nav title, hi. We get that the default nav bar as well as our nav bar, and we don't want that. So I'm going to Command Z to undo this. And what we're going to actually do is create another container view that holds that starting nav view. So when you go and create an actual navigation view, the first time you create it, we open up like this. And then every time we go to another screen, it knows that we are already inside a navigation view. So now we need to create this layer of the navigation view. So let's right-click the navigator, create a new file. This will be a SwiftUI view, and let's call this Custom Nav View. Click Create. I'm going to move this above the custom Nav Bar views just so they're kind of like in order. And this will be the first nav view that we want to put into our actual app. All right, so we're going to start this off by actually adding a navigation view to this screen here. So this is a regular navigation view that Apple gives us. Inside the regular navigation view, we're going to put a custom Nav Bar Container view. And then we have content that we're going to pass in here. And let's click enter on this ViewBuilder. And in here, let's just put color.orange for a second. All right, so we're back to where we just were 1 second ago, and we have that nav bar at the top here that's coming from the regular navigation view. And we don't want that, so on this custom nav bar container view, let's add a nav bar hidden, and let's set it to true. So now the regular nav bar will be hidden by default because we're setting it here. While we're here, let's also set the navigation view style to stack navigation view style. And I covered this in the bootcamp. This is just the regular style that we see when we go from screen to screen. And finally on this screen, we want to be able to actually pass in some custom content. So we're not going to just start with this orange screen. We're going to initialize it with some generic content that conforms to view. Again, let's initialize it. We'll say let content of type content, and the init will actually be a @ViewBuilder. We'll call it content. It will be a function that returns content. We'll set self.content equal to content, open close parentheses, and then we can put that content on the screen here. So when we call custom nav view, we will open the parentheses and we can add in our content. Let's do color dot maybe red, and I'll call dot ignores safe area on it, and let's click resume and see if it builds. All right, so now we have our actual custom nav view ready to be used in our app. So when we use this custom nav view, it's going to secretly put a navigation view, a regular one, on the screen, but then we're going to hide it. So we can't see the regular nav bar here, but we are going to benefit from all of the performance benefits that we get from the navigation view. So the secret here to creating this custom nav view is actually leveraging Apple's navigation view by default. So let's put this custom nav view on the screen. I'm going to jump back to our app nav bar view. Scroll up here. And I'm going to cut this Z stack that we just made. Let's cut it. And let's start this body with a custom nav view. Open the parentheses, we get our content. Let's click enter. And then I'm going to paste in the Z stack on this screen. So now we can see it looks almost the same, but what we know behind the scenes here is we are actually in a navigation view, a regular navigation view. So because we're in a navigation view, we can then start to use navigation links. And that's why this word navigate now is actually blue. It's not dulled out anymore because we can use it because we're in a navigation view. So if I click this word navigate, we can now get that segue to our second screen. And this leads us to the next step in this tutorial where we actually want to customize the navigation link as well, because when we segue using a regular navigation link, it's going to by default start showing the regular nav bar at the top. We can see the regular nav bar at the top here. And when we use a navigation link within our custom nav view, we really want the second screen to also have our custom nav bar at the top. So now let's customize a nav link. So let's right click the navigator, create a new file. It'll be a SwiftUI view, and let's call this custom nav link. Go ahead and click create. Let's click resume to make sure we are connected here. And again, we're leveraging Apple's API. So our custom nav link is really just going to be a regular navigation link. And I'll open the parentheses here, and I'm going to go down to the destination and label. So although we're using this navigation link, we want to be able to customize the destination and of course the label. So if I right click and jump to the definition of navigation link, we go into Apple's API, we can see that the navigation link gets two generic views here. We have a label conforms to view, and destination that conforms to view. So we're going to actually do the same thing in our navigation link. So I'm going to just copy this bit of code here. Let's jump back to our custom nav link file. I'm going to paste it up here real quickly. Our custom nav link is going to have a generic parameter called label that conforms to view, as well as a destination that conforms to view. And again, I want to point out that if we write it like this, where we have label, where label conforms to view, the same thing as writing label that conforms to view. Destination, destination conforms to view, destination conforms to view. So we're going to have the exact same parameters in our custom navigation link as Apple's navigation link. And one more time, let's also jump into the docs again. And we have the init that we're actually using when we create a navigation link. And the init has destination and a view builder for the label. So I'm going to copy this init here. Jump back into our custom nav link. And let's paste in this init here and open the brackets. So here, let's say let destination of type destination and let label of type label. In here, we're going to set self.destination equal to destination, and we'll set self.label equal to label, open close parentheses, because it is that view builder function here. So when we go to create these custom nav links and we open the parentheses, we're going to get this destination and label completion here. So I'm going to put the destination on, so I'm going to put these on separate lines. The destination, I'm just going to have, let's just put text that says destination for now, and then the label, we can just put we can click enter on the label here and we can put in our navigate. And then let's actually just put our content that we're passing into our initializer onto the screen. So the destination, it's not just going to be a text that says destination, instead it's going to be our destination that is from up here. And our label, of course, is going to be our label. Just to make sure that this is working, let's change the label here to say click me. So we can see that the label is actually changing, so we are connected here. And then the preview is grayed out because the preview is not in a navigation link. So on these previews, let's actually create our custom nav view, open the parentheses, and let's put the custom nav link inside that custom nav view. All right, so now we have our nav view at the top here, and we have our click me button, which is blue. It's a custom nav link, and when we click it, we go to the second screen. So starting to work, but we still have this problem with the nav bar coming in at top and our custom nav bar not being here. So what we're going to actually do in this custom nav link here, instead of just returning destination, what we're going to actually return here is a custom nav bar container view. And then the content inside there will be our destination. So that custom nav bar container view has our custom nav bar at the top. So if we click it, we get our custom nav bar. And now we just need to hide the regular nav bar. So in here, I will also call .NavigationVar Hidden, and let's set it equal to true by default. So the regular nav bar will be hidden. Click me. We now have our nav bar coming in on top, which looks great. All right, while I'm here, I noticed that this back button does not work. So let's add some logic for the back button to actually function. And that's in our Nav Bar View. So let's go to the custom Nav Bar View. And the back button, we can use the environment variable that comes by default with our navigation view. So we can use an @environment, and the key path will be /.presentation mode, and we'll create a variable called presentation mode. And then when we click on that back button, let's jump down to our back button. Let's go presentation mode.wrappedValue.dismiss. All right, so that's the default back logic that we get for the regular navigation view and sheets that we get anyway. Let's jump into our app Nav Bar View one more time. Let's click resume. All right, and then in here, instead of using the regular navigation link that Apple gives us, let's use our brand new handy dandy custom nav link. Open the parentheses, we get our destination and label. It looks just like the regular nav link with destination and label. So let's make the destination say text of destination. And let's click enter on the label, and we can put in our text that says navigate here. And then I'm going to, let's delete the regular navigation link just because we don't actually need it. Let's click play here, and then when we click our new navigate button, it should go to our second screen. So that segue that we're getting from screen 1 to screen 2 is that same push segue that we get by default from the regular Nav View and the regular Nav Link. And that's why we are leveraging Apple's API to create our own custom nav bar here. And when I click the back button, you can see that it is working, that logic we just added to go backwards. The final thing we need to set up on our screens is obviously whether or not we need to show or hide this back button, and how do we actually set up the title and the subtitle in our custom nav bar. Because right now it all says title and subtitle. So we're going to do that the same way I think that Apple does, by using preference keys. So let's right click on the navigator one more time, create a new file. This one will be a Swift file because we don't need the SwiftUI preview. And let's call this custom nav bar preference keys. Click create. And in here we're going to create some preference keys for all of our data. So looking back at the custom nav bar view, we have whether or not to show the back button, we have a title, and we have a subtitle. And we're going to create 3 preference keys for all of these. So I'm going to copy this. Let's jump back to our preference keys file. All right, I'm going to paste in those 3 variables that we need. Let's comment them out quickly. Let's import SwiftUI. All right, let's create our preference keys now. Let's create a struct. We'll call this custom nav bar title preference key of type preference key. We'll make it conform to preference key, open brackets. Every preference key needs a default value, and the value of the title is going to be a string that I'm getting from up here. So this will be a string, and we'll set it equal to a blank string by default. We'll then add our reduce function, and in here we're going to very simply set the value equal to the next value, open close parentheses. Moving faster here because I've been using these preference keys in the last maybe 3 videos. You guys should be pretty familiar with this by now. I'm going to copy this, create another one. We're going to call this custom nav bar. Let's call it subtitle key. And this one is going to be an optional string because there's a chance that our view does not have a subtitle. So let's make it an optional string. Let's set it equal to nil by default. And then let's just delete and re-add a reduce function here. And this way the completion now has our optional strings here. So we'll set value equal to the next value, just the same way we did it here. And then finally we need one for the back button. So I'm going to paste one more time. Let's say custom nav bar. Instead of title preference key, let's do custom nav bar back button hidden preference key. And this will be a bool. And by default, we don't want our back button hidden. So by default, we're going to make this false. So it'll only be hidden if we make it true. Let's then, again, delete our reduce and then re-add our reduce function so it comes with bool completions. We'll set the value equal to the next value, open close parentheses. And then I just want to create some quick extensions so that we can use these very easily. So let's create an extension for view, and I'll open the brackets. And let's quickly jump into the app Nav Bar View. Let's scroll down to the default implementation. And we can see that the regular nav bar works like this. We have the .navigation title, and we can add a string. And we have the .navigation bar back button hidden. We can set it equal to true or false. I'm going to copy these, and I'm going to go back into our custom nav bar preference keys. Let's paste them and just comment them out for a second. Let's create a func, and let's call this custom navigation title. And we're going to pass in a string. So I'll use an underscore here because we don't need the parameter name, and let's just say title of type string. We'll open the brackets. And here we are going to return self with a preference. And the key for the title, of course, will be our custom nav bar title preference key. .self, and we'll set the value of that key to the title. And as you guys are well aware of now, because we are in this extension, we don't need this word self or the period, we can just have a preference here. And this function needs to return some view, and now our custom navigation title will work just like the navigation title. Our custom nav bar also has a subtitle, so let's create another one. So let's copy this, paste down here. Let's do custom navigation subtitle. Let's Let's call this subtitle, and this will be the custom nav bar subtitle preference key, and the value will be subtitle. And let's do the back button. So let's create a func. We'll say custom navigation bar back button hidden. And this will have an underscore here. This will be hidden of type bool. We will return some view and open the brackets. Preference. The key this time will be our custom nav bar back button hidden preference key dot self. And we'll set it equal to hidden. All right, I'm going to delete these two, and then I'm going to create one more function just for us for fun. Let's just call it custom Nav Bar Items. Open close parentheses, return some view, and we'll open the brackets. In here, I'm going to basically combine all three of these. So first, we want to pass in a title. So pass that in here. Secondly, we want to pass in a subtitle. And I just noticed right now that when we set up our subtitle preference key, it was optional. So down here, we should actually make this optional. Let's pass in our subtitle to our final function down here. And let's also say back button hidden of type bool. In this function, we're then going to return self. So the error should go away quickly. And on self, we're going to call .custom navigation title. We'll pass in our title. We're going to also call .custom nav subtitle. We'll pass in our subtitle. And we'll add .custom nav bar back button hidden, and we'll say back button hidden. So now we could add one of these to our view if we need to, or we can add all three at once. And when we call this custom nav bar items, I just want to show you quickly. If I call .custom nav bar items, right now it's going to make me have a title, a subtitle, and a back bar hidden. But we don't always want to include all three of those. So let's give some default values here. So if we don't include a title, let's just set it equal to a blank string. If we don't include a subtitle, let's set it equal to nil. And if we don't include the back button hidden, let's set it equal to false by default. All right, and now our initializer is a little more flexible if we only want to add a title or a subtitle or something like that. Just showing you guys some of the different things that we can do here. So we have our extensions set up. Let's jump into our app Nav Bar view. Let's click resume. All right, and in here, let's just update the title. So anywhere, any child of the custom nav view, I should be able to call .custom navigation title and put in custom title. And I just realized as we did this that we are not watching the preference keys in that nav bar yet. So let's actually finish this up by just customizing that. Let's jump into the custom nav bar view. And right now we're initializing the custom nav bar view with this fake data. But I actually want to initialize these in the container view, not just in this nav bar view. So I'm going to copy these. And let's jump to our custom nav bar container view. And in here, remember this is just the top nav bar as well as the main content. We're going to paste in all of these items for our nav bar here. And then we're going to pass in these values to the custom nav bar view. So let's jump to the custom nav bar view. Let's click resume here. We can make these, I think, constants. We'll say let show back button of type bool. We'll say let title of type string. And we'll say let subtitle of type optional string. Let's click resume. We should have this error down here. Let's initialize the preview with show back button of true, title of title here, and then subtitle goes here. Let's click resume. We should have one more crash here. Let's go to the custom Nav Bar Container view. Here we're just going to pass in our new variables. So show back button, we'll do title, and we'll do subtitle. Let's click resume. All right, almost done. And then Let's initialize these with the actual values that we want to initialize them with. So we're going to use a blank string here, and we're going to use nil here. And then we want all three of these variables to actually watch those preference keys that we just set up. So on this VStack, I'm going to add a .onPreference change, and the key will be our custom nav bar title preference key .self. We'll set self.title equal to that value. And just to make sure it's working, let's go down to our container view here, and anywhere inside this container view, we should be able to call .custom nav title and get new title. And our new title is on the screen just like that. It's magic. So we're going to add two more on preference change. We're going to do custom nav bar subtitle preference key. We'll set self.subtitle equal to that value. And then on preference change, custom nav bar back button hidden preference key .self. And we're going to set self.show back button equal to exclamation mark and then value. So this is not value. I'm doing not value because our preference key is whether or not the back button is hidden. So if it is hidden, this will be true. But our value on the view is actually whether or not it's being shown, show back button. So we want the opposite of hidden, so we're doing the opposite of value. I probably should have just lined that up, but we're going to do show back button as not value. Just to make sure that both of those are working, let's add a .custom navigation subtitle. Do subtitle, pops up onto the screen. And if we do custom nav bar back button hidden, let's do true. The back button should then go away. So that's all working. Let's jump into our app Nav Bar View. Let's click resume. This is our actual nav bar now, and we got our title coming in perfectly. So on this first nav bar view, we probably don't want the back button here because we don't need it. So we can call .custom nav bar back button hidden true. And now this will work. And then we can navigate to our second screen. And our second screen is just this destination right now. But I can then customize that second screen as well. On that second screen it says destination, we can then add a custom navigation title. We can say second screen. And maybe our second screen also has a custom subtitle. We can say subtitle should be showing. And if we jump into our app here, we have our custom title on screen 1. We can navigate. We have our custom title on screen 1, and we can navigate to screen 2. Our custom nav bar with a second screen, and the subtitle should be showing. It is right there. We have our back button, and we now have a custom navigation view working perfectly in our app. I also want to point out here that instead of calling these individually, we can call our super convenient .custom Nav Bar Items. And then in here, we can then add all of our stuff. So we can say new title. We can set the subtitle. I'll set it equal to nil. Back bar hidden. Back button hidden. Let's set it equal to false for a second just to make sure it's working. This looks awesome. Let's add in a subtitle. Perfect. Back button hidden true. It's gone now. And that is pretty much it for our custom nav bar. The only thing that stands out to me that I do want to point out is when we use the default nav bar, we get this swipe back gesture that users can just by default swipe back left on the screen and it will go to the last screen. And by default, if you hide the regular nav bar and that nav bar back button, that swipe gesture goes away. And it's really unfortunate because it's an awesome feature to have in your nav bar. But because we are still using that default nav bar under the hood, we can actually add that back manually. So what we're going to do, and let's put it in the custom nav view file. I'm just going to come down here and create a extension, and let's extend UI navigation controller. open the brackets. And the UI navigation controller is actually the screen that's underneath all of this. It's the actual UI kit navigation bar. We don't really deal with this in SwiftUI, but it is there under the hood. And what we're going to do is override the view did load for this navigation controller. So every time this navigation controller loads, it calls a function view did load. And we're just going to override that function with a little bit of custom logic here. So we're going to first call super.viewDidLoad. So we'll call all the regular stuff that viewDidLoad should happen. And then we're going to add interactive pop gesture recognizer.delegate. I'm going to set the delegate equal to nil, basically so that our navigation view is no longer the delegate for the pop gesture recognizer, and by default it will still be available. If I jump back to our app Nav Bar View and click resume, let's click play on the simulator. If I navigate to the next screen, I now can also drag back our custom nav bar to the last screen. So we get that gesture recognizer back in our app, and everything is looking awesome. Alright guys, that's it for this video. You now know how to create custom navigation views in SwiftUI. And the key for this tutorial is that we actually leveraged and used Apple's default navigation view under the hood. So because of that, we have this awesome segue, we have this awesome back swipe gesture recognizer, we have our back button working. So our nav view looks custom, like we made it ourselves, but under the hood, we took all of those performance and memory efficiencies that Apple gives us, and we're keeping those in our actual nav view stack. So hopefully this will help you guys build really cool custom screens. I can't wait to see them and hear about them. If you did enjoy this video, do not forget to hit the subscribe button. Leave a like and comment on this video. This was a long one. I know it was hard. Hopefully it was worth it. If you stuck with me and you understood everything we did here, you are well on your way to becoming a professional iOS developer. Alright, that is it for me, guys. Thanks again for watching. As always, I'm Nick, this is Swiftful Thinking, and I'll see you in the next video.